Your concerns are worthless. You're just the help. That's what the billionaire real estate mogul said to the 24-year-old nanny standing in his Miami penthouse. 48 hours later, that billionaire lost everything: his company, his reputation, his freedom. And that young nanny? She became a mother to the baby she'd risked her life to save. But here's the part that will destroy you. The baby had been crying in pain for 3 months. 3 medical professionals tried to help him. All 3 were paid to stay silent. And the baby's own parents chose money over their son's life. Until one woman said enough. This is the true story of how courage defeated power, how love conquered greed, and how one person's refusal to stay silent saved an innocent life. Stay with me, because what happened in that Miami penthouse will break your heart and restore your faith in humanity at the same time. Welcome to the story room. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment your view on the story and where you're watching from. Let me take you to Miami. The scream ripped through the penthouse on the 45th floor of the Azure Tower. Keisha stood outside the nursery door, her hand shaking on the handle. She was 24 years old. She'd only been working for the Harrison family for 3 months. But tonight felt different. The baby's cries weren't normal. They were desperate, urgent, like he was begging anyone to listen. Keisha. Victoria Harrison's voice cut through the hallway. Sharp. Afraid. Keisha pushed the door open. The nursery was enormous. Gold wallpaper. Silk curtains that touched the floor. A chandelier that probably cost more than Keisha's entire life. Everything screamed wealth. Everything except the crib in the center of the room. The baby boy thrashed inside it, his little fists pounding the sheets. His brown curls stuck to his forehead with sweat. His face was bright red, mouth open, screaming like his life depended on it. And maybe it did. Keisha stepped closer, her uniform still perfectly pressed despite the late hour. Her heart pounded. Something was wrong. She'd helped raise her 3 younger siblings back in Atlanta. She knew what normal crying sounded like. This wasn't it. This was terror. She bent over the crib, looking at everything. The mobile hung still. The expensive blankets looked perfect. But the mattress, something about the mattress bothered her. She pressed her hand on it gently. It sagged slightly in the middle. Almost impossible to notice unless you were looking for it. Her breath caught. What are you doing? Victoria appeared in the doorway, her silk nightgown clinging to her thin frame. Behind her stood Brandon Harrison. Tall, expensive watch on his wrist, adjusting his cufflinks nervously. I don't know yet, Keisha said quietly. But something's not right. The doctor said he's fine, Brandon snapped. 3 different pediatricians. Top specialists in Miami. They all said nothing's wrong. Then why did 3 nannies quit? Keisha asked, her voice steady. Victoria flinched. They couldn't handle the crying. They were weak. Were they? Keisha looked up at her. Or did they see something you didn't want to believe? The tension in the room thickened. Brandon stepped forward. Watch your tone. You're the help. I'm the only one left, Keisha said calmly. And if you want your son to stop crying, you need to listen to me. She lifted the corner of the mattress carefully, slowly, deliberately. And then she saw it. The frame beneath the mattress was rotting. The wood was weak, unstable, crumbling in places. The expensive crib, the centerpiece of this golden nursery, was a death trap. Oh my God, Victoria whispered, her hand flying to her mouth. Keisha's mind raced. The baby wasn't just crying to cry. He was uncomfortable, maybe even in pain. The unstable mattress probably shifted every time he moved, creating pressure points. But that wasn't the worst part. As she looked closer at the frame, she saw them. Red marks. Small scratches along the wood. Fresh ones. Her stomach turned. How long has this crib been like this? She asked, her voice tight. It's brand new, Brandon said defensively. We bought it 8 months ago before he was born. Top of the line. Imported from Sweden. 8 months, Keisha repeated. And no one checked it? No one maintained it. Silence. The baby's cries grew louder, as if feeding off the tension. Keisha carefully lifted him from the crib. He was so small, So fragile. His little body shook with each sob. She held him close, whispering soft words, rocking him gently. Slowly, his cries began to soften. "What are you doing?" Victoria asked. "What you should have done weeks ago," Keisha said. "I'm protecting him." She carried the baby to the rocking chair in the corner, away from the dangerous crib. "The other nannies," Keisha said quietly. "They saw this, didn't they? They saw something was wrong. And instead of fixing it, you blamed them. You sent them away." Victoria's face went pale. "That's not." "Yes, it is," Keisha interrupted. "You ignored the signs. You chose to believe your money could fix everything. But you forgot the most important thing." "What?" Brandon asked. "You forgot to actually pay attention to your son." The words hung in the air like smoke. The baby's breathing slowed. His tiny fingers wrapped around Keisha's thumb. His eyes, puffy and red from crying, finally began to close. Victoria sank against the doorframe. Brandon ran his hand through his hair, his expensive watch catching the light. "What do we do?" Victoria asked, her voice breaking. Keisha looked down at the sleeping baby in her arms. Then at the rotting crib. Then at the two people who had everything except what their son needed most.
"We call someone," she said. "Right now."
"We document everything. And we make sure this never happens again." "But it's midnight," Brandon protested. "Your son has been crying for months," Keisha shot back. "Midnight doesn't matter anymore." She stood up carefully, still holding the baby. "I'm not just the nanny. Not anymore. I'm the only thing standing between your son and real danger. So either you listen to me, or I walk out that door just like the others did." Brandon and Victoria stared at her, this young black woman in a simple uniform, holding their son, speaking truth they'd been avoiding for months. "What happened to the other nannies?" Keisha asked again, softer this time. What did they really see? And in that question, everything changed. Because Keisha knew, deep down she knew, this wasn't just about a broken crib. This was about something much, much worse. The first nanny quit after 2 weeks. The second lasted 5 days. The third didn't even make it through her first night. What did they see that made them run? "I need their phone numbers," Keisha said, still holding the sleeping baby. "All 3 of them." Victoria's face went tight. "Absolutely not. That's private information." "Your son's safety isn't private," Keisha fired back. "Those women saw something. Something that scared them enough to walk away from jobs that pay 6 figures. I need to know what it was." Brandon crossed his arms. "They were incompetent. End of story." "Then you won't mind if I call them," Keisha said. "If they were just weak like you claim, they'll say so. But if they saw what I'm seeing now..." "What are you seeing?" Victoria interrupted. "A broken crib," Keisha said. "But more than that. I'm seeing a pattern. 3 trained professionals noticed something was wrong. But instead of listening to them, you fired them." The silence was deafening. "Fine," Brandon finally said, pulling out his phone. "I'll give you one number. Nicole Rodriguez. The first nanny." He texted Keisha, the contact. She shifted the baby carefully and dialed. It rang 4 times before a tired voice answered. "Hello. Nicole? My name is Keisha. I work for the Harrisons now. Get out." Nicole's voice cut through like a knife. "Get out of that house right now." Keisha's blood ran cold. "What did you see?" "I can't talk about this. I signed an NDA." "An NDA?" Keisha glanced at Victoria, whose face had gone white. "They made you sign a non-disclosure agreement?" "Please," Nicole whispered. "Just leave before it's too late." "Nicole, the baby is in danger. The crib is." "It's not just the crib." Nicole's voice cracked. "That's what I tried to tell them. But they wouldn't listen. They said I was being dramatic. They said I was trying to extort them." Keisha's heart pounded. "What else did you find?" Heavy breathing on the other end. "Then, the marks." "What marks?" "On the baby. Small ones. Red lines on his back, like something was pressing into him while he slept. I documented everything. I took pictures. I showed Mrs. Harrison." Keisha looked at Victoria. "Is this true?" Victoria's hands trembled. She was mistaken. The pediatrician said it was just normal infant skin irritation. Which pediatrician?
Keisha demanded.
Dr. Patterson. Our family doctor. Your family doctor, Keisha repeated. The one you pay. The one who depends on your money. How dare you? Brandon started. Did you get a second opinion? Keisha cut him off. From a doctor who didn't owe you anything? No answer. Nicole's voice came through the phone again. I begged them to take him to Children's Hospital, to let real specialists examine him. But they refused. They said I was causing unnecessary drama. They paid me 3 months' salary to leave quietly and never speak about what I saw. Keisha felt sick. The other nannies, did they see the marks too? Ask them yourself, Nicole said. If they'll talk to you. Most of us are too scared. Scared of what? The Harrisons are powerful people. They have lawyers, connections. One phone call, and your whole life can fall apart. I have a family to protect. I couldn't risk it. The line went dead. Keisha lowered the phone slowly. She looked at the baby in her arms. So small. So innocent. She pulled his onesie up carefully.
There.
Faint red lines on his back. Barely visible in the dim light.
But there.
Oh God, she whispered. Victoria lunged forward. Stop it. You're invading his privacy. He's a baby, Keisha shouted. He doesn't have privacy. He has parents who are supposed to protect him. And you're failing. The baby stirred but didn't wake. Keisha pulled his onesie back down gently, her hands shaking with anger. How long? She asked quietly. How long have you known something was wrong? Victoria's eyes filled with tears.
You don't understand.
We have a reputation. Brandon's company just went public. We're in the middle of a major deal. If word got out that we were neglecting our child. You are neglecting your child, Keisha's voice echoed off the walls. You chose your image over his safety. You paid people to stay quiet instead of fixing the problem. Brandon's jaw clenched. We did what we had to do. No, Keisha said. You did what was easiest. What protected you, not him. She walked past them, still holding the baby, heading toward the door. Where are you going? Victoria asked, panic in her voice. To take proper pictures of these marks. To document the crib. To call a pediatrician who doesn't owe you anything. And if you try to stop me, I walk out right now, and I call Child Protective Services on my way out. Brandon moved to block her path. You can't do that. Keisha met his eyes. Watch me. For a long moment, they stood there. The billionaire and the nanny. One holding all the money and power. The other holding something far more important. Finally, Brandon stepped aside. Keisha walked past him into the hallway. She could hear Victoria crying behind her. Could hear Brandon making phone calls. Probably to his lawyers. She didn't care. She carried the baby downstairs to the kitchen, the brightest room in the penthouse. She laid him gently on the clean counter, supporting his head carefully. She pulled out her phone and started taking pictures. The marks on his back. The red scratches. The faint bruising near his shoulder blades. Evidence. Then she went back upstairs, past the Harrisons who were now arguing in hushed, angry whispers. Back to the nursery. She photographed the rotting crib frame. The unstable mattress. The red marks on the wood that matched the marks on the baby's skin. More evidence. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Jennifer Kim, second nanny. Nicole gave me your number. Call me now. Keisha's hands shook as she dialed. Jennifer answered immediately. How bad is it? Bad, Keisha said. The crib is completely unstable. The baby has marks on his back. They paid Nicole to stay quiet. They paid all of us, Jennifer said. But I kept my copies. Pictures. Medical notes. Everything. I knew someday someone would need them. Why didn't you report it? I tried. Jennifer's voice broke. I called the non-emergency line for child services. But the Harrisons found out. Their lawyer threatened to sue me for defamation. Said they'd destroy my career. Make sure I never worked with children again. Keisha closed her eyes. I need those documents. I'll email them to you right now. But Keisha, be careful. These people don't play fair. Let them come, Keisha said. I'm not backing down. At 1:47 a.m., Keisha's phone pinged. Jennifer's email had arrived. What she saw in those attachments made her realize this wasn't just neglect anymore. This was a crime. The first file was a photo of the baby at 3 weeks old. Red marks crisscrossing his tiny back like a roadmap of pain. The timestamp showed it was taken 3 months ago. 3 months. Her hands shook as she swiped to the next image. Another photo. Same marks, deeper this time. Dated 5 days later. Jesus, she whispered. The next file was a voice memo. She pressed play, keeping the volume low. Jennifer's voice came through, shaky and scared. This is day 12. The marks are getting worse. I showed Mrs. Harrison again today. She told me to stop being hysterical. Said the baby's skin is just sensitive. But I know what I'm seeing. Something in that crib is hurting him. Another voice memo. Day 15. I measured the crib frame today while they were out. The mattress support is sagging 2 inches on the left side. There's a metal bracket that's come loose. It's pressing through the mattress when the baby lies down. That's what's causing the marks. I told Mr. Harrison. He said I was overreacting. He gave me an envelope with $5,000 cash and told me to take a week off to calm down. The final recording was dated the day Jennifer quit. I can't do this anymore. I reported it to the pediatrician they sent me to, Dr. Patterson. He barely looked at the baby, just said it was normal. I know he's lying. I know they paid him. I'm leaving today. I'm taking copies of everything. If something happens to this baby, I need proof that I tried. Keisha sat in silence, her heart pounding. Footsteps on the marble stairs. Victoria appeared, now dressed in yoga pants and a cashmere sweater. Her eyes were red from crying. We need to talk, Victoria said quietly. Yes, we do, Keisha replied. Victoria sat in the chair across from her, perched on the edge like she might run. I know what you're thinking. You think we're terrible parents. I don't think anything, Keisha said. I know. I have proof now. Photos, voice recordings, medical documentation from multiple nannies. All saying the same thing. Victoria's face crumpled. It wasn't supposed to be like this. What wasn't? Any of it. Having a baby. Being a mother. I thought it would be easy. We have money, resources, the best of everything. But he just kept crying. And I didn't know what to do. So, you ignored the people who did know, Keisha said flatly. I was scared, Victoria shouted, then caught herself, glancing at the sleeping baby. She lowered her voice. I was terrified. What if it was my fault? What if I was doing something wrong? What if people found out I couldn't handle my own child? So you let him suffer, Keisha said. I didn't mean to, Victoria whispered. Where's Brandon right now?
Keisha asked.
On the phone with our lawyers. To sue me? To protect us, Victoria said. His company's merger is worth $200 million. If this gets out... Maybe you should let it get out, Keisha interrupted. Maybe you'll finally do the right thing. Before Victoria could respond, Brandon's voice boomed from the doorway. Like hell we will. He stood there, phone in hand, face twisted with anger. I just got off with our attorney. You're fired, Keisha. Pack your things and get out. Keisha stood slowly, still holding the baby.
No.
Excuse me? I said no. I'm not going anywhere. And if you try to force me out, I'm walking straight to the police station with every piece of evidence I have. Brandon's jaw clenched. You signed an NDA. I signed an employment agreement, Keisha corrected. Not a gag order. And NDAs don't cover child endangerment. The color drained from Brandon's face. Here's what's going to happen, Keisha continued. Tomorrow morning, a real pediatrician is going to examine your son. We're going to document his injuries properly. We're going to replace that crib. And you're going to start being actual parents. And if we refuse? Brandon asked. Then I make one phone call to Child Protective Services. And another to every news outlet in Miami. Let's see how your $200 million merger holds up when the headline reads, Real estate mogul silences nannies while baby suffers. The room went silent except for the baby's soft breathing. Brandon looked at Victoria. Victoria looked at the floor. Fine, Brandon finally said. We'll do it your way. Good, Keisha said. Now get out, both of you. I need to settle him for the night. They left without another word. Keisha looked down at the baby in her arms. Still sleeping. Finally peaceful. Finally safe. I've got you, she whispered. No one's going to hurt you anymore. But even as she said it, she knew the hardest part was still coming. Because the Harrisons weren't the type to give up power easily. At 9 a.m. sharp, Dr. Angela Brooks walked through the penthouse door. She was nothing like Dr. Patterson. No fancy suit. No polished smile. Just a woman in scrubs with 20 years of pediatric emergency experience who didn't care about anyone's reputation. Keisha had found her through a referral from a nurse she knew, someone who couldn't be bought. Show me the baby, Dr. Brooks said without greeting. Keisha led her to the living room where the baby lay on a clean blanket. Brandon and Victoria sat stiffly on the opposite couch, watching like defendants at trial. Dr. Brooks knelt beside the baby. Her hands were gentle but efficient. She checked his temperature, reflexes, breathing. Then she lifted his onesie. Her face went hard. How long has he had these marks? She asked. At least 3 months, Keisha said. Based on the previous Nanny's documentation. 3 months. Dr. Brooks's voice was sharp. She looked at the Harrisons. You let your infant suffer with visible injuries for 3 months? Our family doctor said it was normal skin irritation, Brandon said defensively. Your family doctor was wrong. Or lying. Dr. Brooks pulled out her phone and started taking pictures. These are pressure marks consistent with prolonged contact with a hard object. This bruising suggests the injury was repetitive. Night after night. Victoria made a choking sound. Dr. Brooks finished her examination in silence. Finally, she stood. I need to see the crib. Keisha led her upstairs. Dr. Brooks's face darkened with each step. She examined the crib frame carefully, ran her fingers along the rotting wood, tested the sagging mattress, found the loose metal bracket. This is criminal negligence, she said quietly. Can you prove it?
Keisha asked.
I can document it. The rest is up to Child Services. 2 days later, Child Protective Services arrived at the penthouse. The lead investigator was a woman named Patricia Gomez. She had a clipboard, 2 assistants, and an expression that said she'd seen it all. Mr. and Mrs. Harrison, Patricia said. Sit down. We have questions. Our lawyer is on his way, Brandon protested. That's your right, Patricia said calmly. But refusing to cooperate will be noted in our report. Now sit. They sat. Patricia turned to Keisha. You're the one who contacted Dr. Brooks? And if you're enjoying this story so far, you'll want to subscribe, because this is only the beginning. Yes, ma'am. I'll need to speak with you separately. But first, I need to examine the child. She held out her arms. Keisha hesitated, then carefully transferred the baby into Patricia's experienced hands. Patricia's face softened as she looked at him. Then she checked his back. Her expression hardened. These match the medical report exactly, she said, taking photos. Pressure injuries. Repetitive trauma. She looked at the Harrisons. How long did you know about these?
Silence.
Asked a question, Patricia said sharply. The nannies mentioned something, Victoria finally whispered. But our doctor said it was normal. We'll be contacting him, Patricia said, making notes. Over the next hour, Patricia and her team inspected everything. The nursery, the humidity damage, the disposal receipts for the crib, the medical records. Then Patricia sat down across from the Harrisons. Here's what happens next, she said. We're opening a formal investigation. Given the severity of the documented neglect, we have grounds to remove the child immediately.
Victoria gasped. No.
Please don't take my baby. However, Patricia continued, Dr. Brooks recommended that Miss Washington remain as primary caregiver. The child is thriving under her care. So, I'm prepared to offer an alternative. Everyone leaned forward. Miss Washington will remain in this home as the court-appointed supervisor. She will have full authority over the child's care. You'll have supervised access only. Any decisions regarding the child's welfare must go through her first. Brandon exploded. That's insane. You're giving our nanny legal authority over our child. I'm giving the person who's actually been protecting your child the power to continue doing so, Patricia said. Unless you'd prefer we remove him to foster care. Brandon went silent. I'll take that as acceptance, Patricia said, pulling out paperwork. Sign here. Brandon's hands shook as he signed. Then Victoria. Then Keisha. Congratulations, Patricia said to Keisha. You're now the legal guardian pending the outcome of our investigation. After they left, the penthouse fell into heavy silence. Keisha held the baby close, feeling the weight of what just happened. This isn't over, Brandon said, his voice filled with hatred. Yes, Keisha said firmly. It is. But she was wrong. 48 hours later, Brandon launched his counterattack. Keisha found out when her phone rang at 6 a.m. Her mother was calling from Atlanta, crying. Baby, what did you do? The police were just at my door asking questions about you. Keisha's heart raced. What kind of questions? About your character. Your history. If you'd ever been violent. If you'd ever stolen anything. They had a whole file on our family. Mama, listen to me. This is Brandon Harrison trying to discredit me. Don't tell them anything without a lawyer. A lawyer? Baby, I can't afford. I'll handle it. Just don't talk to anyone. I love you. Keisha hung up, her hands shaking. They were going after her family.
Her past.
Everything. That afternoon, Victoria appeared in the kitchen where Keisha was feeding the baby. Gone was the crying, broken woman. This was Society Victoria, cold, calculated. We need to talk, Victoria said. I'm busy. I'm going to appeal to your better nature, Victoria continued. You care about your mother, don't you? Stage 4 lung cancer. Experimental treatments not covered by insurance. Currently $70,000 in medical debt. Keisha's hands froze. I could make that debt disappear, Victoria said softly. All of it. Plus enough money to cover her treatment for the next 5 years. The best specialists. The best care. She could actually survive this. The words hit like a punch. All you have to do is tell CPS you made a mistake. That you overreacted. That we're actually good parents who had an unfortunate accident. The investigation goes away. We get our son back. Your mother gets to live. Keisha looked down at the baby in her arms. Then thought about her mother. The woman who'd raised her alone, worked 3 jobs, sacrificed everything. No, Keisha said. Victoria blinked. You didn't even think about it. I don't need to. My mother raised me to do what's right, even when it costs everything. She'd rather die than know I sold out an innocent child to save her. You're condemning her to death, Victoria said. You're condemning yourself to hell. Keisha shot back. Using a dying woman to manipulate me? That's lower than I thought even you could go. Victoria's mask cracked. I'm trying to save my family. By destroying mine? Keisha said. By doing whatever it takes? You don't understand what's at stake. Victoria's voice rose. Brandon's company, our reputation, our entire life. If this investigation continues, we lose everything. Good, Keisha said. Maybe you should lose everything. After Victoria left, Keisha called her mother back. Mama, I need to tell you something. The people I work for offered to pay for your treatment. All of it. But I'd have to lie about something important. Something that could hurt a child. There was a long pause. Then her mother's voice came through, weak but firm. You know what my answer is. I know. But I needed to hear you say it. I didn't raise a liar, and I didn't raise a coward. You do what's right, Keisha Marie Washington. You hear me? Tears streamed down Keisha's face. I hear you, Mama. I'm proud of you. Whatever happens, I'm proud. The next day, Brandon's lawyer filed an emergency motion to dismiss the CPS investigation. They were going to court. The final hearing arrived on a cold February morning. This was it. The moment that would decide if a 24-year-old nanny could keep a billionaire's baby. The moment that would prove if courage meant anything in a world built on money. Judge Robert Sullivan entered the courtroom. Everyone rose. This is the final determination hearing, the judge announced. I've reviewed all evidence. Before I rule, I want to hear from the parents. Brandon stood. He looked different, thinner, older. His real estate company was under investigation. His merger had collapsed. But he was still fighting. Your Honor, I made mistakes. I acknowledge that. But I'm still this child's father. I have rights. I've taken steps to correct my errors. I've hired a full-time nanny, renovated the nursery, enrolled in parenting classes. All within the last week. Judge Sullivan noted dryly. Better late than never, Brandon said defensively. Money isn't everything, Mr. Harrison, the judge said. As this case has proven. Brandon sat down, jaw clenched. Mrs. Harrison? Victoria stood slowly. She wore a simple dress. No jewelry. She looked vulnerable.
Real.
Your Honor, I'm not going to fight for custody, she said quietly. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Victoria, what are you doing? Brandon hissed. She ignored him. I'm going to tell the truth instead. I failed my son completely. I was so obsessed with appearances that I ignored his suffering. I silenced people who tried to help him. Her voice shook but didn't break. Keisha Washington did what I should have done from the beginning. She put my son first. She risked everything to protect him. And because of her, he's healthy now. Happy. Thriving. This is insane, Brandon interrupted. You're giving up our child. I'm giving him a chance, Victoria corrected. Something we never did. She pulled an envelope from her purse. Your Honor, this contains evidence of financial fraud at Harrison Properties. I'm submitting this to support my testimony that Brandon is unfit for custody. I spoke to the FBI 2 days ago. Gave them everything. Brandon's face went white. You destroyed me. No, Victoria said calmly. You destroyed yourself. I just stopped protecting you. Judge Sullivan banged his gavel. Mr. Harrison, sit down or I'll have you removed. The judge turned to Keisha. Miss Washington, approach the bench. Keisha stood, her legs shaking. I've read your background, Judge Sullivan said. You work 2 jobs. You send money to your mother in Atlanta. You have no criminal record. But you also don't have wealth or conventional resources. Tell me why you should have custody.
Keisha took a breath.
Because I love him, not the idea of him. Him. I know when he's hungry before he cries. I know he likes to be held on the left side because my heartbeat calms him. I know these things because I pay attention. Her voice grew stronger. I don't have money. I don't have a mansion. But I have time. I have patience. I have love that isn't conditional on him being perfect or quiet or convenient. And I promise you, Your Honor, if you let me keep him, I will spend every day proving he was worth fighting for. The courtroom was silent. Judge Sullivan looked at his notes. Then at the baby. Then at Keisha. In my 20 years on the bench, I've rarely seen someone fight as hard as you fought for a child that isn't legally yours.
He paused.
However, the law is complicated. You're not a blood relative. Technically, this child should go into the foster system. Keisha's heart sank. But, the judge continued, I have discretion in unusual circumstances. And this case is as unusual as they come. He looked at Brandon. Mr. Harrison, you've shown a pattern of negligence and now face criminal charges. I'm terminating your parental rights effective immediately. Brandon started to protest. His lawyer pulled him back. Judge Sullivan turned to Victoria. Mrs. Harrison, your honesty today shows growth. But too little, too late. However, your voluntary surrender will be noted favorably should you seek therapy and eventual supervised visitation. Victoria nodded, tears streaming. Finally, the judge looked at Keisha. Miss Washington, I'm granting you emergency foster custody with a path to adoption. You'll work with CPS to complete licensing requirements. In 6 months, we'll reconvene to finalize permanent adoption. Keisha's knees nearly gave out. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you. Don't thank me, Judge Sullivan said. Thank yourself. You earned this. He banged his gavel. This court is adjourned. The courtroom exploded. But Keisha just held the baby close, tears of joy streaming down her face. "I'm really his mother," she whispered. Patricia Gomez appeared beside her. "Congratulations, Mama." Outside the courthouse, Keisha's phone rang. Her mother. "Baby girl, I saw it on the news."
You did it.
"You really did it." "We did it, Mama," Keisha said. "How are you feeling?" "Better than I have in months. Pride is pretty good medicine." "I'm so proud of you, I could burst." "I love you, Mama." "I love you too. Now bring my grandson home to meet his grandma." Keisha laughed through her tears. 6 months ago, she was just a nanny trying to make ends meet. Now she was a mother.
A guardian.
A fighter who'd taken on one of Miami's wealthiest families and won. Not through money or connections or power. Through courage. Through truth. Through love. She looked down at the baby in her arms. Her baby now. He looked up at her and smiled. A real, genuine smile that lit up his whole face. "Hey, little one," she whispered. "Welcome to our new life. It won't be fancy. We won't have a penthouse or designer clothes. But we'll have something better. We'll have each other. And we'll have love. Real love. The kind that shows up at 2 a.m. when you're crying. The kind that fights for you even when the whole world says to give up. The kind that matters." The baby grabbed her finger with his tiny hand. Keisha looked out at the Miami skyline, the sun breaking through the clouds. Somewhere in that city, Brandon was facing criminal charges. Victoria was starting over. The empire was crumbling. But here, in this moment, holding her son, Keisha felt nothing but peace. She'd risked everything.
Her job.
Her safety. Her mother's treatment. Everything. And she'd gained everything that mattered. As she walked toward the parking lot, reporters called out questions. Cameras flashed. But Keisha just kept walking, protecting her son, heading toward their future. Toward a small apartment instead of a penthouse. Toward simple meals instead of catered dinners. Toward a life built on love instead of luxury. And it was perfect, because sometimes the greatest victories aren't about what you win. They're about what you refuse to lose. And Keisha had refused to lose her soul, her integrity, and this baby's chance at a real life. That was worth more than all the money in the world. Epilogue. 1 year later. Let me tell you what happened next. Because this story doesn't end in that courtroom. 1 year later, Keisha stood in a small apartment in Little Havana. 3 bedrooms.
Clean.
Safe. Filled with laughter. The baby, now a toddler named Isaiah, ran around the living room, chasing a ball, giggling. Her mother had moved from Atlanta to Miami. The cancer was in remission. The doctors called it a miracle. Keisha called it answered prayers. On the refrigerator hung a newspaper clipping. Former nanny adopts baby she saved. A story of courage. Brandon Harrison was serving 5 years for financial fraud. His real estate empire had collapsed. Everything he'd built on lies had fallen apart. Victoria had reached out twice asking for supervised visitation. Keisha had agreed. Not because Victoria deserved it, but because Isaiah deserved the chance to know his birth mother, if she could prove she'd changed. The first visit had been awkward. The second, slightly better. Victoria was in therapy now, working as a receptionist, learning what it meant to be humble. It would take years to rebuild trust. Maybe it would never fully come. But Keisha believed in second chances, not for the people who demanded them, but for the people who earned them through changed lives. Nicole and Jennifer had both sent gifts when the adoption was finalized. So had Dr. Brooks. And Patricia Gomez had attended the celebration, bringing a cake that said, "Congratulations, Mama." Keisha worked one job now, as a family advocate at a nonprofit that helped parents navigate child services. She spoke at conferences. She trained new social workers. She told her story to anyone who would listen, because she'd learned something important. Her voice mattered. Her courage mattered. And one person standing up could change everything. Her mother walked into the living room, scooped up Isaiah, and covered his face with kisses. "Grandma's baby boy," she sang. Isaiah squealed with delight. Keisha watched them, her heart full. Her phone buzzed. A text from a number she didn't recognize. "My name is Rachel. I'm a nanny for a family in Coral Gables. The baby has been crying for weeks. The parents won't listen. I saw your story. Can you help me? Keisha stared at the text for a long moment. Then she replied, Yes.
Tell me everything.
You're not alone. Because the fight wasn't over. It would never be over. As long as there were powerful people who thought money made them untouchable, there would be vulnerable children who needed someone to stand up for them. And Keisha Washington? She wasn't done fighting. She looked at Isaiah, playing happily with his grandmother. She thought about all the nights he'd cried in pain, all the times the Harrisons had chosen their image over his safety, all the moments when giving up would have been easier. But she hadn't given up. And she never would. Because some things are worth fighting for. Some battles are worth bleeding for. And some victories, like the sound of a child's laughter after months of tears, are worth risking everything. As the Miami sun set outside her window, Keisha picked up her son, held him close, and whispered the same words she'd whispered that first night in the penthouse. I've got you, and I'm never letting go. The moral of this story: courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right even when you're terrified. Power isn't about money or connections. It's about knowing what you stand for and refusing to compromise. Love isn't convenient or comfortable. It's showing up, fighting, sacrificing, protecting. Keisha Washington was just a 24-year-old nanny when she walked into that Miami penthouse. But she became something more: a mother, a warrior, a voice for the voiceless. She proved that your background doesn't determine your worth. Your courage does. She proved that speaking truth to power can cost you everything and still be worth it. She proved that sometimes the smallest person in the room carries the biggest truth. And she proved that real heroes don't wear capes or have superpowers. They're ordinary people who refuse to stay silent when they see injustice. They're the nannies who document abuse when parents ignore it. They're the mothers who choose integrity over money. They're the everyday warriors who look at a suffering child and say, Not on my watch. This story is for them. For everyone who's ever stood up when it was easier to sit down. For everyone who's ever spoken truth when silence was safer. For everyone who's ever chosen the hard right over the easy wrong. Your courage matters. Your voice matters. You matter. And if this story moved you, if it inspired you, if it reminded you that doing the right thing still counts, then do me a favor.